join our session. Hopefully you'll have fun and you'll find out more about the resources that you could win. And obviously feel free to ask any questions as we go along. Thank you. Thanks to you. Do you want to start, Oliver, and just do a little?
Yep, I'll start. So as Mike mentioned, I'm a graduate aerospace engineer at Rolls-Royce in Bristol. So my current role is as a composite manufacturing engineer, which sounds really fancy, but all that composites are is that they're basically, if you imagine having a piece of string that you can pull, and when you pull it, it's really strong. And that's something that we really want on the fans of our engines, which are the front part of the engine that spins, that you can see on planes. And so when you pull on a piece of string, it's really strong, and that's exactly what we see in a composite material. And so my job basically involves looking at how we can take those composite materials and make them into the fronts of our engines. So I'll pass you over to Naomi for her introduction now.
Yeah, so I'm a graduate manufacturing engineer. So as a manufacturing engineer, my job is to take the designs that design engineers come up with, and we figure out how they can manufacture those parts. So we don't actually manufacture them ourselves, but we're responsible for figuring out all sort of the processes, the equipment we need, how they can make them safely, to a good standard, and also so that they're cost effective. So that's sort of what I do. At the moment, I'm working in a team looking at 3D printing metal parts. So that's quite new for us. 3D printing is quite a big thing now, but we don't tend to print in metal. So this is sort of very new cutting edge technology that I'm working on.
That's brilliant. We've got a question here, lots of questions coming in. First one I've got is, how did you get into your role, Naomi? How did you end up at Rolls-Royce?
So my dad is an engineer, so I've always been quite heavily interested in maths and science and figuring out how things work. And when I was at school, I was an air cadet, and I found planes really interesting. So I decided to go to university to study aeronautical engineering. And during that, I did a placement year at Rolls-Royce. And actually, during that time, I realised that whilst I found design engineering interesting, I actually preferred manufacturing. So I chose to move over and graduated.
Excellent. Oliver, how did you end up working at Rolls-Royce?
So very similar story to Naomi, really, in that while I was growing up, I really enjoyed maths, physics, and planes. And so when you combine all of those three together, I decided that the right choice for me at university was to go and study aerospace engineering, much like Naomi. And then while I was in my final year, I was applying for a lot of jobs post graduation, so after university. And I found, and of all the options I had, I found that Rolls-Royce was the best one available and suited me the best. So that was where I chose to go.
Excellent. So what, for students out there, what subjects did you study at GCSE? Naomi, do you want to just let us know what you chose, your options?
Yeah, so for GCSEs, I did triple science, history, PE, and then I did French because my school made me do a language. But sort of at GCSE level, you don't really need to worry too much to get into engineering. It's more A level was the point where sort of your subjects mattered.
Yeah. Oliver, what was your route to uni?
Yeah, so again, very similar to Naomi, really. On GCSEs, I studied maths, triple science, the two Englishes, and then my school made us pick a language and one of history or geography. So I ended up doing two languages and both history and geography, because there weren't really any other subjects that I particularly wanted to do. But again, as Naomi said, your GCSE choices are not the most important things. But as you mentioned, my route to university, I'll then go on to A-levels. So at A-levels, I chose to study maths and further maths because I really enjoyed maths, maybe a bit too much. And then physics, and it's those three that I would say are probably the most important subjects to study at A-level for going into engineering. And then for my other two choices, I decided I want to do a couple of subjects that were a bit different. So I then chose geography, and I also did French, but only up to AS level.
Yeah, that's good though. So tell us something cool about Rolls-Royce. What have you found since you've been working there that you think's cool? Naomi, what have you been doing?
To be fair, there's quite a lot of cool stuff at Rolls-Royce. Even just wandering around site, you get to see some really cool stuff. But I would say probably the visitors on site. There's some really high up people because we work in defence. We get to see some really high up people from the Navy, the RAF walking around site. And as an ex-air cadet, I find that really cool.
Oliver?
Yeah, I think I'd go for just almost all of our manufacturing facilities are really cool, because when you study maths and physics at A level, you spend a lot of time in the classroom doing maths and not really seeing a lot of how it's applied in practice. And so what that means is that you come into a company like Rolls-Royce and you just see all of this really cool equipment that you use to make stuff like the composite engine parts that I'm looking at making at the moment. And it's really amazing to just stand there and see, wow, you know, this bit of maths that I can do on a bit of paper from my A-level course has led to someone being able to make this really cool part. So that's what I think is the most cool thing about Rolls-Royce.
It's fun when you see actually sort of maths go from like a board to actually real life thing, and then making it, and like you were saying, 3D printing it. Do you want to just explain perhaps for some of the youngsters about how do you using laser sintering 3D printing for metal printing?
Yes, we're using laser bed fusion. So what happens is we put down a layer of powder, and then we run a laser over the top of it, and that solidifies where the laser hits, which is where our part is. Then we put another layer of powder, and then we run the laser over again. And basically we keep doing this, building up lots of layers, and then lasering it on. And at the end of it, you'll end up with a box full of powder, but hopefully in the middle of that powder, you've got your part that's formed properly from the laser.
Yeah, it's very clever, because traditional manufacturing techniques all work on metal removal.
Yeah.
You know, loads about aircraft specifically, but I know that the central hull bit, that used to be like one lump of metal, and it was machined. And I think someone told me it takes about a year for a passenger jet to remove all the metal, and it's like 90% metal removal. But I think they can 3D print them now in like a month or something. But yeah.
Yeah,
amazing.
it means we can do much more interesting shapes as well. So when you don't remove the material, you're quite limited on what you can do. Adding the material means you can make much more crazy and exotic shapes.
And things will become, I think we'll start to see things looking more organic rather than it being, because obviously traditionally it's cut a hole in something, isn't it? Drill a hole, machine a flat surface, where it could be more organic-y, like ivy on a tree, for example. On that note, why do you think it's important for young people to get into STEM subjects? Naomi, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, any problem in the world, I think, could be solved by someone working in STEM. It could be literally anything, there'll be a STEM solution to it. So if we don't have people interested and working in STEM, we're never going to get new technology. We're never going to get new things. You know, if we didn't have STEM and people interested in STEM, you wouldn't have the phones you've got today. You wouldn't have your laptops, the internet, anything like that. So people being interested in STEM means we can create so many new things just to make our lives better and more enjoyable, I would say.
Yeah, exactly. Oliver, you got anything to add?
Not particularly, other than to really echo Naomi's comments there. STEM is all about solving problems in whatever form they arise, and whether that's an engineering problem. So how do I get my plane from the UK to Spain to let people go on holiday, or whether that's how can I develop a vaccination for a new disease, which is quite topical at the moment. All of those are really part of STEM, and can be solved using STEM. And so because of that, I think it's really an exciting field to get into.
Yeah, exactly. So we've got some questions. What is actually inside the school's box that they could win? What is inside there? Could you let us know? Do you know what's inside the box?
Yeah, so there's quite a few different activities. So ours is themed around electrification flight. So in terms of the activities in there, there's a little helicopter activity. We have to build the little aircraft with the motors on. There's another little aircraft activity where you build a circuit on the aircraft, and as it flies, it should light up. And then there's just a few other things around the theme of electricity. So building circuits with different things, and how to connect circuits. But I think there is a video posted where you can see some of the contents of the box, and you can see some of the Rolls-Royce STEM team actually running the activities.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, fantastic. Do you know when the winners will be announced?
I'm not sure off the top of my head.
That's fine. And is there a link on the website so how schools and people can enter?
Yeah, there is. I think if you search for Rolls-Royce STEMtastic, there might be something come up. I can just check.
Brilliant, thanks.
We do also have a web address. It's stemday.co.uk/RR electrifying. So we can put that in the chat afterwards to just to provide it to everyone that's watching.
That's brilliant, thank you. Are you guys apprentices? Are you apprentices or are you?
No, so we're graduates, but Rolls-Royce does do apprenticeships, and I kind of wish that I might have done one if I'd known about them. They seem like a really good way of actually getting into engineering. So the Rolls-Royce apprenticeships, the higher degree apprenticeship, you work 3 days a week at Rolls-Royce, and then you do 2 days a week at university. Rolls-Royce pays for you to get your degree, which is amazing because university is really expensive. And you basically get to learn while on the job, which I think we might have missed out a little bit in our degrees. It's very theoretical learning stuff, whereas I think as an apprentice you get to do much more hands-on stuff alongside your degree. So the only thing with that is it takes you slightly longer to get your degree, but I think all the experience you gain while doing it and the money you save, because you are paid for doing your job as well as having your degree paid for, I think that makes doing an apprenticeship really worth doing, and it is something I do wish I'd known about when I was making my choice to go to university.
Yeah, definitely. I did an apprenticeship in engineering, and I did it that way. Sort of studied up to degree, but the bonus is obviously the company pays for your education. You don't have to get a loan like you guys, I assume, maybe did.
Yeah,
yeah, fantastic. Question here. Oh, actually, on the apprenticeship thing, do you know if there's several levels? Do they do like normal sort of a level 3 apprenticeship and then higher, and then obviously you mentioned the degree apprenticeship? Do you know if there's Rolls-Royce have the different layers?
I know they definitely do the higher one. I'm not sure if they do standard like level 3 apprenticeship or not. I would assume they probably would, and let you work up, but I'm not sure off the top of my head.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm sure if you go to Rolls-Royce and search apprenticeships, I'm sure there'll be adverts on there. What are the opportunities for progression within your roles, and where do you see yourself in the future, Oliver? That's a good one.
So right now, as a graduate, it's an entry-level position. So that means that you do a lot of work in a lot of different areas. So every 4 months I change jobs, that lets me see a different part of the business, how we make a different component of our power systems, for example. Now moving forwards from that, what I essentially plan to do is to choose an area that I like the most out of all of those different areas that are available to me, And then progressing further forwards, there's the options to go either into managing engineering projects as a whole, so taking on a more kind of leadership role, and leading teams of people that are developing the product. Or there's the option to go down the route of what's called a technical specialist, and what that means is that you become a real expert and know a lot about one particular subject area, and people from all over the company will come and see you for advice about what they're trying to do, and whether or not you could help them to solve a problem that they're having. For me personally, I think that I'd prefer to go down the first of those two options that I just presented to you, possibly alongside becoming a chartered engineer, which is a really good way of showing how much knowledge and skill that you've gained, and how much you're still developing when you've just started your career, like myself.
Yeah, brilliant. What about yourself, Naomi?
I'm probably fairly similar to Oliver, so I'll be doing lots of placements in different areas, figuring out what I enjoy, and then I would probably say I'm swaying more towards going down the management level route, unless I find a certain area of manufacturing or a certain process that I really enjoy and find interesting, and then I might consider technical specialist, but I think more the people management and process management appeals to me more.
Yeah, that's cool. So on the fun side of things, do you guys do any like enrichment or team building? Is there anything like that?
Yeah, there's quite a lot of that. So obviously we can't do as much now because of COVID, but normally there's quite a few team socials where you get to sort of know your team and go out and do stuff together. The better you know each other, the easier it is to work with. You're not scared to ask them questions. Me and Oliver are both members of the Apprentice and Graduate Association in Bristol. So that's sort of a community of grads, apprentices, interns as well. We sort of run lots of social events, networking events, sometimes educational events. So we do lots of things through that. And another thing that Rolls-Royce does that people probably don't know about is we do community days. So actually every year, I think we're assigned 2 or 3 days where we're paid to go and do charity work in the community. So you get a day off work, which is great. You get to help the local community and you get paid for it. So I did some as an intern, and we got to go and build a garden for a therapy centre, which was really fun to do. And it's a bit of a nice break from your day job, but you also get to help the local community, which Rolls-Royce is really heavily involved with.
That's really good. Oliver, have you had any other experiences than that?
So alongside helping the community, we also have some charitable work as part of the Apprentice and Graduate Association that Naomi mentioned as well. So every year we have a list of charities that we collect from our members. So these are all local charities, and then we choose 2 of them by vote to support by do various charity fundraising activities, whether that's virtual, which was for most of last year, or normally what would be in person, and raise a load of money for those charities, and then donate it to them at the end of the year in a big handover ceremony. And so alongside all of the STEM and community outreach, we do also have some of the charity work along the side as well.
That's brilliant. Naomi, you mentioned, or I mentioned actually, that you're a STEM ambassador. What is it you do for that?
Yeah, so as a STEM ambassador, you do a little bit of online training, and what it means is that you can, COVID permitting, you can go into schools or run online activities to basically encourage children to study STEM subjects. So I've done presentations for schools talking about my career and how I've got to where I am. I've gone into schools and run activities on how to make paper aeroplanes in different designs and figure out how to change the design to make them fly better. So it's really just getting involved. Normally you do it quite locally with local schools, but at the moment there's been a lot of online stuff. But yeah, it's really just to encourage children to consider a career in STEM and think about the potential options that are available to them.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Another thing I think is also important. I don't know what it's like at Rolls-Royce, but women in engineering, it's generally sort of thought of as a male field. But I mean, my experience is obviously there's lots of women, but I don't know if, you know, people out there realise, is it a good 50-50 split where you are, or is it more male, would you say?
The team that I'm actually working in at the moment is all women, which is quite odd. You don't normally see that, but it's quite a young and diverse team that I'm working in. But in general, I would say it's definitely not 50-50 yet. There's definitely more women than there used to be, but it's still, I think, 15-20%, which we really need to improve on, because the more diverse the teams are, the more different ways of thinking there are, and the better ways there are to come up with new solutions. If it's all the same sort of person sat in a room looking at the same problem, realistically, they're all going to come up with a very similar idea. So we need a different range of people to be sat in that room to come up with new ideas and think outside the box.
Yeah, exactly. Do you work with many ladies, Oliver? Is there many in your team, or?
So in my current team, which is only about five people, there's only one of them. So at the kind of less representative end, at the kind of less representative end of the scale within Rolls-Royce, should we say. But one thing that's also worth touching on there is that when we talk about diversity, we're not just thinking about women in engineering. And so the team that I'm in is still really young and really diverse, both in terms of in terms of their people's backgrounds. So whether we're talking about people with different nationalities, people with different races, people of different sexualities, and so on. And so Rolls-Royce does cater for all of the different all of those different minority groups through employee resource groups as well, which we call ERGs. And so there's a woman in engineering, one of the UK GDM, which is the group that's supporting the Curiosity Box competition as part of STEMtastic. And then there's also PRISM for our LGBT members. There's the Afro-Caribbean Pioneers Network, and so on. And there's loads of others as well. So those are just a few examples of the different groups available for minority groups within Rolls-Royce.
That's fantastic. It sounds like a really, diverse employer. It's really good. So throughout this pandemic and the coronavirus outbreak, how has this affected your job? Because it looks to me like you might be at home, but you've got your Rolls-Royce tops on. So are you at home? Where are Naomi right now? Are you working from home?
I'm working from home this afternoon. I was actually on site this morning. So as a manufacturing engineer, we tend to be based on the shop floor a lot more than in an office. So it's a lot harder for us to work from home. So I would say I'm probably spending 4 out of 5 days a week actually on site, and then working from home when I can. But most of my work is sort of hands-on in person, so I can't really do it from home.
Oliver, how's it impacted you?
So in terms of working from home, quite similar to Naomi, because my current role is a manufacturing role. So I split my time with about 3 days a week on site and 2 working from home, and I'm working from home at the moment as well. But it really depends on what your job is. So when I was doing my last role before Christmas, I was working from home pretty much full time, apart from 1 or 2 days where I had to go into the office for various things. So it really does depend on which role you're doing at the time.
Brilliant, thank you. Thank you ever so much for your time. Thank you for the people watching. It's been really insightful. I've learned a lot anyway, just from talking to you. So I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. That's the end of this session. There's the next session coming up is, let me have a look, it's BT and cybersecurity Q&A. So thank you very much and goodbye.